And it's not always trivial as you sought to count. It's not always the easiest thing to do to figure out the number of outcomes of a certain event. You might have noticed the exponential growth in a lot of cases. How many of you made the connection between the first question and I think it was the second or third question? So it was a true-false test. No, that's wrong. Heads and tails in the first question, flipping a coin 4 times. And at some point there was also a true-false test where you were guessing at answers. How many of you guys made the connection that they're the exact same thing? Flipping a coin and a true-false test that you're guessing at?
Oh.
That's exactly the same situation. Now they were a different number.
Yeah.
One had twice as many outcomes because you went one more. But there's an exponential growth happening in there, yeah? If you flip a coin, heads or tails. If you flip 2 coins, heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, tails, tails. It's 4 times, twice as many as 1 coin. Flip 3 coins, heads, 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 tails, heads, tails, heads, and I'm going to stop because I'm going to screw it up. But the idea is keeping track of all of those outcomes is what that project was all about. Showing you an efficient way of doing it. How many of you guys use the tree diagrams to keep track of them? How many of you use the tables? Okay, how many of you said to hell with them, we're going to write them all out? Yeah, that's okay too. But why are the trees and the tables nice ways of doing that? It helps you keep track and make sure you don't double count things, make sure you don't forget anything. Yeah, how many of you are frustrated at times because the true-false? A lot of people start by going CCCCC for all correct. And then they go CCCCW, CCCWW, CCWWW, CWWWW, and WWWWW. I'm done! 6. Right.
I thought it was easier on that one to read it backwards.
Oh, totally fine.
It just, my eyes were like bugging out.
All good, all good. But how many were frustrated when they realized there were more than 6 outcomes? You probably, at first, yeah, you're like, what the hell? How can there be more? Well, how about CWCWC? Like, well, that can't be in there. Sure it can. You can get the first, third, and fifth right, and the second and fourth wrong. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's the beauty of the trees. The trees, you don't have to worry about where the right and wrong ones are. The trees show you where the right and wrong ones are. That's what's kind of nice about it. So we're hopefully going to apply those laws. Look at that, that's beautiful. Some really rad dude must have made that image for you. So the idea is now that we know the tree exists, can we use the tree idea without actually doing the tree? And that's what I've been thinking for the last couple weeks of class, how to do that, which examples to use. I'm thinking, we're going to do Monty Hall here in a minute. One-armed bandits in Vegas are a great use of that. Great use of that. I was thinking craps for the last week, learning about the game of craps and how it ties into making money for Vegas. And I'm thinking for your last exam, maybe going with Powerball, analyzing Powerball.
No.
Maybe. Let's see how Big 10 goes. If Powerball doesn't work, we'll think of something else.
Not that we would ever win.
What's that?
I said not that we would ever win.
Oh, you got a chance. You got a chance. And what's interesting
They
is
added numbers, extra numbers to it.
they do every once in a while, don't they? It's 63 now instead of 59 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It does kill the odds. It makes the odds worse exponentially. It went from 1 in 80 million to 1 in 120 million overnight one night. I remember watching that. I'm like, well, wonder if America knows that. Nope, not by. What's interesting about Powerball, and this is why I want to analyze with you guys, but at the same time I don't want to analyze it. I want to because if the jackpot gets big enough, which it does every once in a while, it's when you start reading about it in the paper.
400 million lost.
It was 500, what was it?
400 million.
400 million, it's not that big.
One person won it.
One person won it, but that's not, did that make the paper? No, it's not that big compared to its record numbers.
Yeah.
Its record numbers have gotten close to 600
But it was
million.
big because only one person won it.
That is huge,
Yeah.
that is huge, that is huge, but which doesn't always happen. Actually, often it doesn't happen when it gets big. But if the jackpot gets big enough, number 2, if one person wins it, and number 3, if you ignore the taxes on it, don't do this.
30%?
Yeah.
You actually, it's half, I think it's half of it goes away between the Fed and the state.
Yeah.
If you ignore
And then-
the taxes, it's actually, on average, you're making money on average with every ticket you buy. On average. Now, that doesn't mean everybody wins, because not everybody wins. But when you add up all the ways to win, and how much each of those ways pays off, and you add in that one huge jackpot number, the average actually goes positive for a little while. And what's amazing is, when that happens, it's almost like human beings have an intuitive feel for that. That's when you start hearing about it on the news. Almost inevitably, when you hear about Powerball on the news, is when the average has gone positive. And I don't know I can't explain that. It's like a psychological thing.
I don't know what you're saying.
So on average, you lose money playing Powerball. If you add up, so the average we've been doing in class, You know, this times this plus this times this plus this times this.
Yeah.
Craps, perfect example. You walk in, I'm gonna have you guys play week 10. I'm gonna give you 10 starbursts each. I'm gonna make you play 10 games of craps. You're gonna bet a starburst each time. I'll be the bank, I'll carry on a big bag of starbursts to pay you out when you win. All right? I guarantee on average you all will lose 5 starbursts by the end of the day. Because that's the way craps works. When you analyze craps and its probabilities, it's the way it works. Powerball works the same way, which is why the state loves Powerball. Because a loss for you
It's a win for them.
is a win for them. But if the jackpot gets big enough, and the pot is not shared with more than one person, number 2, which almost never happens when it gets big enough. And number 3, you ignore taxes, which obviously can't happen either. But if you ignore taxes, mathematically, the average is positive, not negative. Which means, on average, you make money. The more tickets you buy, the more money you make. As soon as you put the taxes on, though, that advantage goes away. So the idea is this. Let me tell you a story about, let me tell you a simpler story. So there's a game called Keno here around. You've seen Keno in the what would be more interesting for you guys, Keno or Powerball?
I actually don't even know how to play Keno.
No? Well, so those of you that have played both or know both, what is Powerball more interesting?
Keno's just the one where you pick random numbers, right?
Yeah, there's like 80 numbers or 100 numbers and you pick 20 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah? Powerball?
I'd rather do
That's Keno. Right. Which one's
I'd
more?
rather do Megabucks. There's fewer people playing and.
Oh, so less chance of sharing. But if we had to pick one of those games to analyze, Megabucks, Powerball, Keno, what do you guys?
And Megabucks has fewer numbers.
Okay, well think about it. Well, that's okay. We can actually do it in class even, for that matter. But think about which game you would like to see on your last exam. And if you have a preference, shoot me an email. I'll default to Powerball. But if somebody has like a strong feeling about one of the other games, just shoot me the note. Let me tell you a story though. So there was a game like Keno called Pick 4 in New York State. This is about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Essentially the same as Keno. There's 80 numbers. You pick 20 of them on a ticket. And if you hit 4 of the 20, no, hang on a second. The machine picks, hang on, I gotta remember how the rules work. You have to pick a certain number of numbers. And if you get 4 of them correct, you get a certain payout. If you get 3, you get a certain less payout. If you get 2, you get a certain less payout. If you get 0 or 1, you don't get a payout. You lose your $1 bet. I forget the exact rules, but we can get them for you if you need them. Now that is designed to lose you money. The point of that game is, on average, you're going to lose money. Now you're going to win sometimes, and you're going to lose sometimes, but if you average everything that happens, which we'll do this in class, this is the point of the starbursts. If you average all of it together, it ends up being a negative number. Okay? What they did back in New York State in 2006 was, for one of these games, they decided to double the payouts. So you still lost 75% of the time, you lost your ante of $1, but if you originally won $2, you now won 4. If you originally won 10, you now won 20. What they didn't pay attention to was when they did that, the average actually switched to positive. So what was happening originally was every time you brought $1 up to play the game, on average you lost 50 cents. So essentially, instead of playing the game, let's just save paper and just hand the guy behind the counter 50 cents and walk away. Because that's what's really happening in a lottery game. I mean, if you think about it, that's what's happening. But what happened now was they were actually gaining 20 cents on average per game. So instead of walking up and handing 50 cents, you walk up with your hand out and go, I'll take my 2 dimes. And then walk back up. And then walk back up. Because every time you walk up, on average, you're winning 20 cents. 2 college kids figured this out. Over 4 days in 2006, I think it was the month of February, Wednesday, they figured it out. They borrowed a bunch of money from their friends. I don't know who the hell their friends were giving all this money to start this. They must have been very mathematically convincing.
Yeah.
And they just played blindly. They just kept buying tickets. Now, they lost 75% of the time. But when they won, they covered their losses and then earned 20% more. They each ended up making about 150 grand in 4 days. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Absolutely amazing. Using skills you're developing right now. It's the same exact skill that is used by actuaries when they set insurance rates for your car or for your health insurance, your life insurance. You just got to pay attention to the payouts. It's all about the payout. If you can watch the payouts, that's why I love analyzing. Did they change the rules of Keno yet? No? Okay. Because as long as the rules are the same, you're going to lose money on average. But watch for those days they change things. And more importantly, watch for things like your car insurance. Analyze car insurance rates. The same exact thing. Actuaries are doing it. You should be doing it too. If you guys have a choice in health plan, eventually at some point, you may have a choice between 1 or 2 or 3 different health plans. A big one right now is called a high deductible health plan. I may have told you about this. I don't know if I did or not. Have we talked about this at all? So a normal health plan, you pay a bunch of money every month, and then you're insured. I mean, that's the idea of insurance. You pay the money, it goes into a pot, and then if you need it, you can draw from the pot, usually with some kind of a deductible. But there's a premium that you pay to have the plan, right? So you pay, you know, $200 a month, and then you get a certain level of insurance for the $200 a month. Well, a new, very attractive type of health plan has been brought to the public's attention called a high deductible health plan, which is usually paired with what's called a health savings account. What that is, you pay less in premium per month. So where somebody pays $200 a month, if I have a high deductible health plan, I might pay $75 a month. But if I have to go to the doctor, I'll have a higher deductible when I go to the doctor. Point of service, higher deductible. Now you have to use probability to analyze that. That would not make sense if you go to the doctor a lot. If you go to the doctor a lot, you don't want that plan because you're going to be paying more every time you go to the doctor and you're going to the doctor more. But thank goodness, my family and I are pretty healthy. So we don't go to the doctor very much,
You're not really,
which means it makes a sense for us to use that plan.
you're not
And then-
really paying for it until you need it.
Exactly.
Which is what you-
Exactly. And the idea of it is when you look at how often we have to go to the doctor for major things. Now I'm 40 now, so I go annually for my annual checkups. That's when I was diagnosed with ADHD, which I know you guys figured out in the first 7.5 minutes you were in here. Oh, that's a surprise. So, but the idea is all the money we're saving in premiums go into this health savings account, which is then pre-tax. I don't understand taxes, but I know it's a good thing. I don't understand why it's a good thing, I just know it is. And then, instead of just spending money on the insurance we don't need, we get to keep that money. It's not spent on the premium. I'm not saying this works for everybody. When they first offered it 3 years ago to the employees at COCC, 10 people signed up for it. And you know why they didn't sign up for it? In droves. I freaked out. I'm like, this is freaking amazing. But they didn't sign up because they read the note that says your maximum out-of-pocket expenditure is $10,000 per year. Whereas the normal plan was something like $2,000 per year. And I asked people, why did you sign up for this? They're like, I gotta pay $10,000 a year. I said, yeah, maximally. They're like, yeah. I'm like, how likely do you think it is that you're gonna incur $10,000 worth of medical bills this year? And I wasn't being a smartass. I was being factual. How likely? Well, not very likely. And then I was like, okay, so let's think about that. If it's not very likely that you're going to incur $10,000, do you think it's 5% likely? In other words, once every 20 years would it happen? Do you think it's 10% likely? Once a decade will it happen? Do you think it's 50% likely? Once every other year it's going to happen. And then I just started losing them. Because they, unlike you, are not sitting in a class where you learn about that kind of stuff. That's the whole point, is why you're sitting here. It's actually pretty important to understand what 50% means, what 1/2 means, what those dice sitting in front of you, although being cutesy symbols of our youth, actually imply at least 3 of these, yes. Get 3 different colors if you can. So it's just amazing. I love ending 105's term with the idea of a weighted average, which you guys were talking about before, but applied to probabilities. It's probably one of the most important tools you get in a math class, which makes me sick to my stomach that you're going to get in your last 2 weeks of your math experience in school. But it also makes me happy, because we can do it together. So, cool?
Cool.
Any questions on that? Other than the fact that it's a lot to digest in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's begin our study of probabilities, our formal study. We've been